Welcome to Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table. The podcast for pet groomers ready to start their next chapter. Let's explore what's possible when you trade in the grooming table for the freedom of virtual work. Whether you're done with the physical toll or just craving more flexibility, you're in the right place. We're staying in the pet industry, just shifting how we show up. So take a breath, step away from the table, and let's see what's waiting for you on the other side.
Hey everyone, and welcome to the Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table podcast. I'm your host, River Lee of the Savvy Groomer and Step Away from the Table, and my amazing co-host, Jess of Groomer Support Systems, whoop whoop, services, where she helps you get your systems together. And I'm like, she's just the systems queen.
Yeah.
All hail.
Woo!
So this is going to be a super easy, casual topic today. We're going to talk about a day in the life, from grooming table to a laptop life. So we're just going to roll the punches. We're going to talk a little bit about what it's like to actually be a virtual assistant. For those guys interested in being one, or if you're a grooming business owner, which we call a supervisor for sanity's sake, you're going to be able to hear kind of like what we do and how we do it, and we'll roll with it. So take it away, Jess. I think this is going to be your jam.
Totally, because this is my daily life. And, I'm going to try not to go on too many tangents with my ADHD brain, because truly, the day in the life of a VA, groomer VA specifically, is ever different, changing, diverse. No day is the same. And I like that because grooming is like that too. I'll draw a conclusion of two similarities between being a dog groomer and being a groomer VA, aside from being in the same field. I think the basic level of grooming, like start with a dirty dog, end with a clean, and is very satisfying. And it is almost like a checklist, check off. Like I did the thing, appointment, checkout complete. I got paid. Woo! My day is like start, finish. That's in itself like I completed work. So, my daily tasks are literally just that. I have made tasks for myself that I literally check off. And a lot of those are necessary to a certain degree, but never rigid. Just like the artist of a groomer is like, you never really know what you're going to get, but you deal with it the best you can. So there's that component. I would say also, the thought has lost me. But basically, I'll just run through a little bit of what my average day looks like, and it changes. And it's, of course, different when I'm traveling, which we'll have a whole episode about because that's a different beast, but we love traveling here. I'd say I prioritize my well-being now that I'm a groomer VA so much more than I did before when I was a groomer. For whatever reason, I lived in the chaos. I had a little less boundaries. I was working a lot harder physically, and other aspects of my life suffered. So in transition, I've spent more time calibrating what's important. In a previous episode, we talked about identity shifts. And so in that process, I have become so much more than just the work I do. And so personally, I get most things done in the morning. I'm up at 4:30 in the morning because I love to work out. That's the time I've carved out to do the hardest thing I'm going to do all day, weightlift, spend time with my husband. I come home and I'm just like alive and feeling good. I segment my day in three major chunks when it comes to the work, right? A lot of my clients are in different time zones, and so their 8 a.m. is different than my 8 a.m., right? And just because their office hours, their operating hours are set hours, mine are not. So this isn't always the case, but I'll just say, for example, 8 a.m. start, a few hours, I'm doing my morning checks, I call it. And that's just checking in with all my clients that I manage. And specifically, a big component of what I do is client communication. So that's responding to messages, setting up appointments, doing anything outside of the automated process that we've created together. Um, and honestly, guys, sometimes that morning checks is 45 minutes. Sometimes it's 2 hours, 3 hours, 5 hours. It's never 5 hours, let me be honest. My systems are way too efficient for that. But like it varies. And I'm always really excited when I finish in 45 minutes because I can actually move on with my life and my day. And so that's the first segment. Middle of the day, if I'm talking about work, I'll do projects. So I'm a business owner myself. I'm creating something larger than just being a VA. I'm a systems queen. I have dreams to own and run my own agency where I have people under me. So there's a lot of components and organization and creativity built into that. I have to have the creativity to put out this work that I dream of doing. And so I have to like carve out that time daily. And let's be real, if I'm not inspired, I'm not going to be able to create what I want to do. I'm not going to be able to efficiently, effectively do those projects. So sometimes in the middle of the day, I'll go out to the mountains nearby and go on a hike for a few hours. Or I'll do an art project, or I'll go and make a meal. Instead of doing those things or in combination with. So I always love that aspect. The final breakup of my day in the third component is with work in mind is the evening checks. Now, this is not mandatory, but it's something that I like to do occasionally because I can kind of close up anything that was lingering. Some people, as far as like my supervisor's clients, so pet owners are working 9 to 5. So they get back to me. Even though I checked in with them in the morning, sometimes I don't hear till the evening. And so I like to be somewhat more responsive. Not that I'm on all the time, but enough that I can close the loop there. And I can tuck the business in for the evening, if you will. So that's just the structure I like to work. Now, big caveat, again, like I said, sometimes I'm only doing morning checks. Sometimes I'm not, doing anything beyond 45 minutes a day. If I'm having the day, I choose to be like, that's it, and so I'm really fulfilling my life in other ways. But I think on balance, as a groomer VA and what I seek as freedom and flexibility is aligning my life in the way that I want to be doing what I love doing, what's best for my well-being, physically, mentally, creating balance and priorities and boundaries, while also still being able to make an income. So it's really kind of a jujitsu movement of like what comes at me mixed with what I want to do. And I have no one telling me what to do, and I have complete control and flexibility. And that's the most beautiful thing about my day. What do you think, River?
I love all of that. I just want to honor and appreciate like how candid you were and honest. And I love all of that because I think everyone, when you start this journey on working from home, or working or traveling, it's so different. And
Mhm.
I 100% agree that, you can make a plan and it could very quickly go very sideways, right?
Mhm.
1000%. And I think it's great that you've taken the time, and I know we've talked about in a previous podcast, that the growth, whether that is through therapy or whatever, knowing what you need personally, because I think I can tell you like, oh, these are best practices, but you need to try them on you. And do they actually
Mhm.
work for you?
Mhm.
And for everyone, it's going to be different. Like for me personally, on days that I'm not doing 10,000 steps really early in the morning, breakfast is not important to me. But for some people, they can't ever eat breakfast, right? So, and just as an example, but I think that's incredibly important that you really honed in on what works for you and ultimately what works for your clients, right?
Mhm.
Can
Yeah.
you
Mhm.
speak a little bit too about how, and we'll talk about this more when we do our travel podcast, but can you talk
Mhm.
a little bit more about, with the time zone differences? Because you're in Pacific time zone.
Mm, that's right.
So do you have mostly clients that are in Pacific or do you have people elsewhere? And how are you dealing with that? Because I think it's easier on East
Mhm.
Coast to have people on the
Mhm.
Pacific Coast, because obviously we're up if you're morning people like we are. I
Hmm.
think it's easier being East Coast, but you being on the West Coast, do you find that a little bit tricky? Do you find that people, do they care that you're on that? Like, tell me about what it's like with the time difference. And we'll talk about travel time distance, guys, on the travel podcast. So don't worry about that. We will cover that in a later episode.
Yeah, no, really good point, River. I definitely think you are on point about East Coast has a little bit of an edge over West Coast. I'm in Southern California, and you know what? It just is what it is. It doesn't impede on the work I do. It doesn't bother me, but I would say, just like I talked about in a previous episode, I'm always very upfront with my clients about expectations, you know? So even if I don't, if they're expecting me to come on 8 a.m. Pacific Standard Time, as I typically tend to do just out of my own routine preferences, they know that maybe that's not actually going to happen, and that's totally fine. With that in mind, when it comes to time zone differences, I service clients in every time zone in the US, actually. There's no like appeal to I only serve West Coast. Now, if that is something you worry about, then tailor your services specific to your time zone. But I've always worked with the assumption that I'm going to be moving around a lot, so it doesn't bother me.
So I think that's a great point. And again, if you're going to do that more virtual receptionist situation where you're going to have a situation where you need to be certain hours, that's where you're really going to do that.
Mhm.
But someone like Jess has that more systems queen.
Mhm.
So because she is that systems queen, she's going to have a situation where it doesn't matter where she is in her time zone.
Yeah, and I just prioritize my East Coast folks before. So I start my work with them just to get it going, you know? Get
Absolutely.
that out of the way first.
I
Yeah.
love that. And I think, again, that's where if you become a VA, there's no right or
Mhm.
wrong answer, right? It's all about what works best for you. And I love that you've worked with
Mhm.
that.
Mhm.
I am not currently a virtual assistant. I am a business
Mhm.
coach who runs an online platform, but I am
Mhm.
somebody who works full-time online. Well, maybe not. I only work online. Maybe I don't work full-time. And then, I'm going to do my selfish plug, right? Where I'm
Mhm.
going to talk really quickly about my planner. I really like my planner. I don't know if
Mhm.
Jess, if you've tried it out. If you haven't, I'd love to send you a copy. So this is the
Yeah.
Pause and Prioritize Planner.
Mhm.
This is
Mhm.
specifically designed for groomers by groomers, and it's about empowering to plan, prioritize, and prosper. Really quickly, guys,
Mhm.
this really does do it. And this is not, you know, so this starts at 4 a.m. and goes to 10 p.m. No work before or after this time. Listen, sleep. You need sleep at some point. Um, one
Mhm.
of the main things that we didn't necessarily touch on that I want to touch on that
Mhm.
I do in this
Mhm.
planner is we talk about today's focus. We want to talk about what your intentionality is. So someone like
Mhm.
Jess, she has this beautiful marriage. She's honoring her body. She's taking good care of herself and her business, and that's great. She's got a great balance. If you're someone like me and you need to create a focus, because if not, you're just gonna have like mom guilt mixed with business guilt, mixed with like, I'm a selfish, terrible person. Like I will spiral and be this little nugget of self-hatred by the end of the day. So, so
No. Oh.
listen, I love me.
Mhm.
It's just, sometimes, you have to know yourself, and I think that's important. And instead of being like, it would just turn into like, why don't you love yourself? Why don't you just stop this? It's like, listen, I'm just feeding into that monster of self annihilation. So for me, I need to say, okay, is today's focus business? And for that, what's important is that my priority today? So if my son says to me at lunch, "Hey mom, I want to go to the museum." We have a lot of museums locally open. We have a lot of walking tours. I live in a very historical area. And when I'm home and I'm working, I need to know, is business the priority for the day? So when he asks me, "Hey, I really want to do this tour," I have to say, I would love to, kiddo, but today's focus is business. So let's plan something for later in the week. And there's no guilt because I've already promised on paper. Obviously, I've done goofed at times where my plan has been for, to spend time with him. And I'm like, I'm really sorry, I completely forgot I had XYZ. Or on the flip side, where my plan was business, and I said, you know what? This really can wait today. That sounds really cool. We're going to go do that, right? 1000%. But having the main focus has really helped me. And in the planner, we talk about business, financial, employees, education, planning, family, health, self-care, gratitude. And then I specifically put kids, and the kids say two or four-legged. So if you have a
Mhm.
day where you really want to spend it with your pets and really focus on them, and a lot of us have never actually thought about, okay, if I made my pets my 100% priority today, where everything was about them, I think it's really freeing because a lot of times our pets, because we have been groomers in the past, right? They
Mhm.
fall by the wayside, you know,
Mhm.
or we're not that they're an afterthought, but it's like, okay, like if I woke up today intentionally and they were the first thing I intentionally made my priority, what would that look like differently? And it can allow us to explore how we best want to show up in our life. And as somebody who has a partner, Jess, you could do the same thing with your partner. But that's
Mhm.
where I think that again, for some of you guys, you don't need that focus. You already have beautiful balance. You don't need to try that intentionality exercise. You don't need that. For me, I do.
Mhm.
And then I always set an intention for the day and I write it down. Because
Mhm.
for me, again, if my day will get away from me otherwise. I don't have a lot of natural discipline. I'm not a naturally disciplined person. I wish I was, but I'm not. And
Mhm.
I have to honor and appreciate that. And I also deal with, being on the spectrum where both I need um, novelty, but I also need routine. And there's always a fight between the two. So I really struggle with that where I need that
Girl, me
novelty.
too.
It's hard. And I really struggle too with being told what to do, even by myself. So I really, it's,
Yeah.
you know?
Yeah.
And so in our planner, the other thing I do, if you can see it here, is I have my red, which is I must do today. My orange is I
Mhm.
should be done today, and green is can be done today. And for me, and again, everybody needs to do it differently. So
Mhm.
for me, I never give myself more than 9 tasks a day.
Mhm.
Never. Like
Smart.
if
Yeah.
I do, they're all gravy. I
A
think
long list is very overwhelming for I think for anyone. Totally.
absolutely. And I never make myself have more than 3 things that I have to get done today because
Mhm.
most of those things that I have to get done today are not just one task, right? I mean, how many times
Mhm.
just be like, I'm going to do this one thing. Oh yeah,
Yeah,
right?
totally. And I want to also point out that we have different seasons of life, but we need things to anchor us. And I think your planner is a great example because it keeps us on track of like thinking about the priorities and in whatever mode that feels like. Yeah, I have
Yes.
my own task management system, which I'll talk about in depth another time because
Yeah.
that's a whole episode. But like, yeah, I came to the same conclusion. You need no more than three to-dos a day, and you have to honor your own time and energy. So,
And in whatever way you best work. And so,
mhm,
Jess explained kind of her thought process in her day. So for
mhm,
me, I generally start with anything that either I didn't get done the day before, I pull over and I find my spot
mhm,
on it. Because, if it's in the can do today, a lot of times it rolls over, right? So I add that in there. And for me, that's really going to set up my day because if I have a lot of task heavy day and it's
mhm,
a business task and it's business focused for the day, then
mhm,
I know that my day is going to be wildly different than I
mhm.
have two must do todays. And those two things might be business, but honestly, my focus is my son. On those kind of days, I'm going to get those tasks done immediately. Like I'm going to get up, I'm going to just like get them done and then I'm going to go for my walk. I really like my walk in the morning. For me, it helps me clear my head. It gets my body
Mhm.
going. I didn't realize how much I needed that for my own emotional regulation. And I got it from grooming because when you're grooming, you're physically moving.
Same, same. It was, yeah, that was a big component. And talking about shifting, leaving the grooming industry and schedule and like what our life is, a huge component of our day when we're working was like very energy intensive, physical, and it took a huge part of the day. So it was like there was a clear focus. I have to go to work, get paid, do the thing. If you're a supervisor or grooming business owner, we call them supervisors. Um, your task list is even more than that, and that often bleeds into your off time, which is why, again, another pro of bringing on a groomer VA, because you could offset those tasks that you would, for the most part, take up your free time, your family time, your self time. Um, it frees that up. And you made a statement earlier that I disagree with. I'm going to push back because I think there are some people who are extreme night owls, and I think
Mm.
groomer VAs still could do this. I know when I was still working a little bit and I was downshifting and converting over, I would stay up really late, not because I had to, but because that's where I felt most of my creative push, and like I would get a lot of work done in the night. And because the work I created is not set to be delivered at a certain time, certain day, certain time of day. Working into the night and working over like in night was huge and really helpful. And that was a season for me. It's no longer because I'm getting up really early and I prefer that. That brings the balance to my life. But I just want to say if anyone is a super night owl and wants to free up their time in the day and sleep in, you can do that, which is really cool.
You know what's funny is that I have to really honor what you said because it's interesting. And I love this is why we have to have conversations like this, right?
Mhm,
Because they open our mind up to things that we already know. You don't know what you don't know. So my
mhm.
son is homeschooled. For those of you guys who don't know, I'm not a weirdo. We're just, it works for us. And one of the reasons is my son is an extreme night owl. I am not. So actually, a lot of times when we're doing our 5 a.m. walk, he hasn't slept because he gets
That's
his,
crazy.
yeah, but he can get a month's done worth of school like between like midnight and 3 a.m.
That's amazing. Hmm.
Listen, that is his superpower. It's incredible. And as a mom, it kind of makes you worried, but you know what? His dad worked third shift when we were growing up. Like his, that part of that's probably biology. Who knows, right? And it is documented that on people on the spectrum tend to be more likely to be night owls. But
Hmm.
anyway, I digress. But it's true, and you're absolutely right. Like for him, his worst time is in the morning. He
Hmm.
even if he sleeps the hours I sleep, he really can't get any work done before 2 p.m. And it used to be very difficult because I'm basically brain dead after 2 p.m. in the afternoon. Like I
Hmm.
have all my energy. I get my best work done between 5 and I'd say about 11 o'clock in the morning. And then I start trickling down.
Hmm.
So it is knowing your body. It is,
Hmm.
you are, like you said, an extreme night owl like my son. And for him, if he was doing this kind of work, he would probably mow down tasks between
Hmm.
that witching hour.
Hmm.
And so I think you're right. And, if I misspoke or if I said things wrong, that's what you do. That you hear things and you go, you know what? Actually, you're right. This applies to this. And I
Hmm.
think that's the fun thing about working online
Hmm.
is you get different perspectives from people that you wouldn't meet in your day-to-day life.
Hmm.
And
And
we
you know,
yeah.
if you're a groomer VA night owl combo, like you could just take client communication off your plate, be specialize in package delivery, I think that's the way to go. And and this will tie into a later episode when we talk about travel and like more extreme time zones, is like my prerequisite is I have to work with a grooming software company that allows a send later feature. Because sometimes when I was working really late at night, I would just have it send out 8 a.m. their time. You know what I mean? Like I already did the work and it's going to go to them. Like done. Easy. But it's awkward to have receive a message at 2 in the morning your time. You know what I mean? If you're a grooming pet parent, it's not very professional, right? It's way outside of hours. Even though they did that to us, we don't, we don't, we don't do that anymore. So,
1000%. And I agree. We'll touch on more of that when we talk about travel. But that's it. You can do so much, Amelia. You can do social media. You could update client notes. Like there's so many other things that you could take off a supervisor, which is a grooming business owner that we call a supervisor for sanity's sake. But you can do that at the 3M. And some people are just built like that, and you should honor and appreciate that. And again, my way works for me. Jess's way works for her. And I think, unlike, I mean, the grooming industry, you always have to figure out what works for you. But honestly, you can systemize a lot of that
Mhm.
where, we're doing things a little bit differently, but we're doing things very similar. I feel like learning how to do the day-to-day tasks,
Mhm.
Jess and I can show you how to do them better. But managing your health, your energy, your mental health, your emotional health, that's a
Mhm.
very personal journey. And that I think we can give you what works for us. And then for you, when I was on the cruise, I was using my planner and people thought I was crazy. But I found that I do my 10,000 steps between 3 and 5 a.m. I'd have a shower. Then at breakfast, I would sit down and make my plan for the day. And one of the guys who was, he travels full time now, doesn't work in the pet industry, but he was an attorney. He's like, I can't do a list. He's like, if I make a list, he's like, I do everything but what's on the list. And it
Mhm.
was funny because I said, you know what? I said, that's great because then at least you've learned what you can't do. It's better to learn what you can't do than nothing, right? So I thought that was so interesting. But he had, and it's escaping me now. It's a part of ADHD where basically, if you can't be told what to do. What is that called? I'm blanking
I'm
on
sure.
it.
I don't know, but
No,
I
it
thought
is.
that's just the trait of being an Aries, but
That is also. But he was a Pisces, ironically. But
mm.
actually, Pisces, Aries cusp then, right? Because if you're on the other side, I think
Mhm.
that.
Yeah,
But
it's
that
right
makes
before.
that's actually really funny. I think he is a cusp
Mhm.
baby. So,
Mhm. Mhm.
but anyway, I digress. But I think that's the most important thing. We can tell you what we do on our day-to-day life.
Mhm.
I will say I was not really into fitness before working from home, but working from home after leaving grooming, you need to figure out a physical outlet, whatever that is to you, you know.
Yes, it's made a world of difference for me, and it's brought a whole new passion I didn't think was possible. I mean, we talked about it before, identity shifts. Like what adds to your bracelet of things that make up who you are. It's not just work anymore, and it's not just 8 hours of work, especially as a groomer VA, a VA generally. You could be so much more efficient in the work you do. You could do the equivalent of like what would be pay of energy of an 8 hour workday in half that, in less than that. It's really kind of great.
It is amazing. And if you're like, I don't know about that, like I said, and again, my son's 14 and he can easily mow down a month worth of content and finish tests and write essays. Why? Because he's really focused. He's in that amazing funnel that we get into, right? And if you're on the spectrum, you know exactly what I'm talking about. We are in the zone and things just light up and they flash and they work. And if you're like that, and even if you're not, it's okay. But if you are like that, you can get done so much in so little time. And you know that's true because if someone called and says that they're going to show up at your house, that house that you couldn't clean for like 4 weeks, all of a sudden is done in an hour. And it would have taken everybody else 6 hours to clean, but you somehow magically got it done in an hour. So,
And some groomers feel this while they groom dogs. I know I did personally. So imagine your job was only grooming dogs, and that's part of the role of and what I want to bring to the table as a groomer VA. Like let me help you get there, where you're focusing more on pets. I say pamper pets, not paperwork, you know?
ooh, I like
Yeah. P. Yeah.
I love what is that called? Onomatopoeia or what is that called?
Mhm.
I love that.
Literation, maybe?
Alliteration, yeah, I
Yeah.
was gonna say.
Mhm.
But I love that. But it's true. And
Mhm.
again, that's the nice thing. So we should have a whole I know so many wonderful things we talk about. I don't want to get off to the topic because we've definitely gone a
Mhm.
little longer. But I really think if you are considering leaving full-time grooming and coming into the virtual assistant world, it is going to be a shift. We talked about identity shifts in our previous podcasts, but I think knowing what the life is going to be like is going to help. And if you guys have more insights that you want, maybe like what our office setups look like, or if you want to know like what we use for our physical tools for the VA, we'd love your feedback. We can definitely do more in depth about that at other times as well.
Yeah, totally.
Is there anything else you want to add just before we hop off? I feel like we did a wonderful, they got two totally different day in the
Hmm.
lives, right? So much fun.
My favorite topic.
Yes. All right, guys. Well, as always, we appreciate you. I am Riverly of the Savvy Groomer and Step Away from the Table, and this is my co-host, Just of Groomer Support.
Services.
Thank you. I know I keep saying system because I want to be like, she's the system queen.
She's the system queen.
I feel
Yeah,
like
my business is Groomer Support Services. You can find it at just that www and at Groomer Support Services,
I
all
feel
that
like I'm
jazz.
just gonna be like, this is just of a system, the system queen. I feel like that's what I just want to do. So,
You need
uh,
a crown.
we need to get you a crown. And then
Yeah, I got.
be awesome. All right. And again, guys, this topic today was a day in the life from grooming table to, laptop life, which is being a virtual assistant. And again, working from home is wildly different. But I think if you're ready to make the shift, you're going to be amazed at how much happier you are. And guess what? If you move to this lifestyle and you change your mind, Jess, what can you always do?
Go back to grooming because we love it.
That's it. I mean, that's what's wonderful, but you can do one, you can do both. I mean, the world is completely open to you. So,
Absolutely.
as
Mm.
always, guys, happy grooming.
Cheers.
Thanks for joining me on Step Away from the Table, Beyond the Table. If today's episode sparked something in you, don't forget to follow, share, or leave a review. It helps more groomers like you find their next step. You don't have to do this alone, but you get to do it your way. Until next time, take a deep breath and keep moving forward.